now is the time to survive. I didn't really get wrecked. But as we're getting to the end of this bear market, it's extremely important that everybody's mindset be toward survival and not trying to have ridiculous returns right now. If you can make it to the next halving, you can make it to the bull market, you're going to win. Welcome back to the Sovereign Ratio. We're going to take a look at this today, go over some analysis, and talk about what's to come in the future of crypto and Bitcoin based off of TA. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, and leave me a comment below. First and foremost, as always, just a quick look at live coin watch here. Bitcoin currently sitting at $26,711, up 6% this week, from all the way down at 24.9 and a rally up to 27.4. With some pretty strong indicators behind it, a couple bullish divergences, but there's also some downside signals as well. So it's kind of a mixed signal environment right now, and we're going to go through that in a little bit. But first, I just want to give a general update on what everyone's kind of mindset would be beneficial to be at this point in time as we approach the end of this bear market. The whole goal right now in crypto, at least for me, and probably a lot of people, is just not to get wrecked. The worst thing that you can do before the halving is not preserve capital so that you have all of that to inject into the market whenever the time comes, most likely sometime before or after the halving, which is currently scheduled in late April of 2024. As you can see here by the two trend lines, it really is that simple, right? We're approaching a downtrending level of resistance, and we've lost our level of support that's been going on since January. If you were looking at this chart right now, I would ask you, would you buy Bitcoin, would you hold Bitcoin, or would you sell Bitcoin? And if you're in the buy Bitcoin camp, I feel like you're making a more risky play. I'm not saying Bitcoin can't rally up to the top of the bull market support band here around 28K, but I would be shocked if it went above that. If it did go above that and then retest this downtrending level of resistance and also hold the bull market support band, there's a case for Bitcoin to go to $37,000. But right now, if you look at this chart, I don't think anybody would be, yeah, I think I need to buy Bitcoin here. This looks like a holding place or potentially a selling place hoping for lower prices. You know, if we get a Fibonacci tool out here and very simply run it from January up until the high, we have a 0.5 Fibonacci at 23.6, and we have the golden pocket here at 21.1 to 21.7. This is probably the buying opportunity the last buying opportunity that people will have, in my opinion, is in this golden pocket. If it gets down there, if it doesn't get down there, then it may stop at 23.6 and then kind of bounce around and then eventually go down. But I really do think that Bitcoin has another leg down before we get to that halving. And especially if we go back in history and just kind of scroll back here, Bitcoin usually has a move down either before or after the halving. You know, last time it was right before the flu dump. We had that gigantic move to the downside all the way from $10,300 down to $3,700. Great buying opportunity. Before that, let's expand the price here so we can actually see it. Back in 2016, we had a move down right after the halving. So the halving happened here in mid-July or early July of 2016. And then by early August 2016, price had gone from $768 down to $476. So almost a 40-50% haircut there right before the bull market commenced. Before that, which I'm not sure this data is as relevant just due to the nature of Bitcoin and diminishing returns. But if we go all the way back here to this halving, we had sort of a dump. We were at $13 here in October of 2012, went all the way down to $9 in October. And then we just went to the bull market from there. There wasn't really much of a downturn, but that was very, very early in Bitcoin's history. And leverage positions weren't back then. There were a lot of things back then that weren't really relevant. So I'm not sure that data is as relevant to the current situation. But typically, Bitcoin does have a move down sometime before or after the halving. In April 2024, we're going to have the next halving. And I would expect somewhere between February and May, there's going to be a downturn. And that downturn, in my opinion, would probably stop in the 21.1 to 21.7 area, with altcoins bleeding significantly more than that, especially off of their BTC pairing. But, you know, who's not to say we couldn't retest the low down here at 15.7? I don't know, but I really do believe there's another leg down. If you just look at this chart very simply, you can see big momentum up, and then the momentum up is not that much further than the previous one, Bitcoin looks like very much like it's running out of steam. If it were to break this level of resistance, then I would have a little more confidence in it. But right now, it's bounced right off of it, and it's rejecting off of it. You can see there's a topping tail on this weekly candle. Again, there was a bottoming tail on the previous weekly candle. So there's a lot of like kind of indecision in this area, in my opinion. But ultimately, I do think we're going to go down as much as I would love to see it go up. I just don't think it's going to happen. And if it does get another run up, I think it's going to be very quick. And then we're going back down probably somewhere on one of these Fibonacci levels. If it were to go up to 37, probably revisit, 25 or 23 or something like that in the future, right before the halving. Now stay with me here. This is going to be a little bit longer of a video, and I'm going to go through all of the wonderful news and all of the things that are going to contribute to Bitcoin's success in the next 2 years. But before I do that, I want to mention 3 things off of the chart that I think are very relevant and are pretty much common sense, to be honest. So first of all, we're going to look at the hash ribbons indicator, which everybody's been talking about this. I know people are probably sick of it, but the hash ribbons indicator is fired off 15 times, and 13 of those 15 times when the buy signal came, Bitcoin did not go lower than the previous low. So that's a positive. Some people like to say that it doesn't go lower than the previous low before that, which would be here at 24.8. In my opinion, I think it's safer to say when the hash ribbons indicator fires off, it doesn't go below the low of the previous hash ribbons indicator, which here is 16,000. So if someone were to ask me, Jonathan, is the Bitcoin low in? I would say, yeah, very, very, very strong case for it. Could there be a black swan event that sends it down to $9,000 or $12,000 like Gareth Soloway thinks? Sure. I don't discredit him. He's an amazing trader. But I really do think it's in. And even if you buy at 16K, let's say Bitcoin goes down to 16K again, you buy at 16K, you are not going to regret that decision. Even if it goes down to 9K first, you're not going to regret that decision. You might think it sucks to lose 7,000 on a temporary basis, but what you're going to get out of that in the end is above and beyond whatever that small loss actually is. Second thing I want to note is the power of 3 in Bitcoin. Bitcoin typically does things in 3s, and this is more of a short-term analysis. If we look here from this low in January, we had 1 move up, 2 moves up, and barely a 3rd move up. Bitcoin also likes to do the same thing in reverse. It likes to make 3 moves down. I would say so far, if we can come down here and kind of bounce up a little bit, that would be move 1, and I would expect 2 more moves to follow. They may not be as big as the first one, they may not be as aggressive, but they love to do things in 3s. And I'm going to scroll back and have a case for that. So we look at this bear market from the 69K top. We've got 1 move down and a rally, a 2nd move down and a rally, and then a 3rd move down. There's a prime example right there. In the last bull market, we had kind of the same thing. Let's look at this. We have 1 move up and a drop, a 2nd move up and a drop, a 3rd move up and a drop. Same if we go back to previous cycles. Let's go back to this cycle here in 2017 at the top in December. We had 1 move down and then up. 2 moves down, which technically would be here, and then a 3rd move up, and then a 3rd move down. It's 3 lows, even though it kind of looks like 1 low, 2 low, 3 low. It kind of looks like 4 here. You could make the case because this is at the same price level that it's the same, but figuring that Bitcoin is going to do things in 3s is usually a safe bet, even though sometimes it does things in 4s. And the last thing I want to look at is actually very simple. It's just the monthly stochastic oscillator. And what the stochastic oscillator has, it's been smoothed. So if you look at a regular stock RSI oscillator, there's a lot of jagged movements, very abrupt movements where the K line crosses the D line. If you don't know this, you can actually open the stochastic oscillator options, and there's an option called smoothing, where you can increase the smoothing level, which will kind of level out all of those crazy moves. Because really what we want is the top and the bottom, right? We want to know when the K crosses the D, we want to know when it's at the top and oversold or overbought, and we want to know when it's at the bottom and oversold. Those are the 3 things we want to know. Right now, if we just go back really fast and look in Bitcoin's history, the monthly stochastic RSI smoothed all the way at the bottom is all the way at the bottom and crosses up at the bottom. So here we have this back in this last bear market that we're in now. Here we have this back before the last bull market where it marked the bottom back in March of 2019. That was the bottom there. And then if we also go back to the previous cycle, the monthly stochastic oscillator smooth marked the bottom there too. When it crossed up, it never went back down. So there's a very strong case to be made that unless there's a crazy black swan event, Bitcoin has seen the bottom. But let's kind of look at the previous behavior because it might be relevant. In the last cycle, whenever it crossed up, Bitcoin had a rally very similar to what we've had here. before going back down. But when it went back down, it retraced pretty significantly, right? It went from $13,800 down to $3,700, but the stochastic oscillator really did not move that much. It hovered around the median line here, and when it crossed back up, that's when the magnificent bull market rally started. And I would expect something similar like that to happen. Of course, I'm not a predictor. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what the future is. But if this behavior is the same, which look at the RSI level here that we're at now versus the RSI level back here, it's very, very, very similar. So if this were to cross back down on the monthly and maybe just make a slight move back down to the middle line and then cross back up, when that crosses back up again after going below the middle, that's a pretty good indication that things are getting ready to go crazy, right? So I would say keep an eye out somewhere between February and May of next year for that to happen. That K line, which is the blue line, to cross down the D line, which is the pink purple line, and then go below 50 and then cross back up. Not cross back up 50, but just the K line cross back up the D line. As soon as it touches, that's going to kind of be my signal to really start paying attention to what's going on. So most of us know by now, but if you happen to not know, there have been many spot Bitcoin ETFs sent to the SEC and are currently under review, scheduled to, oddly enough, be really made a decision upon by the next halving, right around the halving. I think it's March or something like that when they're scheduled to have a final decision. But in the meantime, as bullish as that was or sounds or is for the future of Bitcoin, it didn't have a significant price impact, in my opinion, on the market. It had a very short-term move up, but in the midst of that, we also had some good news in Europe, where the first European spot Bitcoin ETF was approved, which, in case you're not aware, spot Bitcoin ETF gives a much wider audience, particularly businesses and corporations and investment firms, to purchase Bitcoin and keep it on the balance sheet in a way that's beneficial to them and more secure for them. When that gets opened up, that's going to be huge for the Bitcoin market, and I would anticipate that that is probably what predicates the next bull market if that decision gets delayed until March. Either way, crypto analysts and YouTubers have been talking for years about the impact of a spot Bitcoin ETF, and it's absolutely true. People like Michael Saylor have also been talking about it in very detailed terms about how it impacts the entire economy, in the entire world economy, to be honest, but in particular the US economy, which really needs an injection of some technology into it, honestly. And from the system that we're in now, Bitcoin is really struggling to be adopted by American lawmakers. But I do think in the next election, that's going to be pretty big, because we do have people like Robert F. Kennedy Jr. who are running, despite whatever his likelihood of getting elected is, who are very pro-Bitcoin. And we do have a lot of people in the House of Representatives and the Senate that are pro-Bitcoin as well. A second piece of bullish news is that the FASB has unveiled a new crypto accounting rule that allows crypto to go off of GAAP accounting. Essentially what that means is previously Bitcoin was off of fair value accounting, meaning that the lowest dollar amount that it had been in that year, so if Bitcoin's currently sitting at 30K and it had been 16K, at the end of that year, any business or organization holding Bitcoin was only allowed to account for it at the lowest value that year. So if you're holding, $30,000 in Bitcoin, you can only show $16,000 of that on your balance sheet. So it skews the organization's balance sheet significantly and does not give a great view, especially if the organization is publicly traded, does not give a great view on like solid ratios whenever you're researching stocks. This should pave the way for more organizations to adopt Bitcoin on the balance sheet, because now they can account for its fair value, or for its actual value rather than its fair value. And finally, a recent article here on CoinDesk: Bitcoin long-term holders control 75% of the circulating supply, from some on-chain data from Glassnode. What this means is that Bitcoin that's in control by long-term holders accounts for 75% of the circulating supply. It's pretty easy to read, but that's a very good sign for what's to come for Bitcoin, because people have a strong belief in it, a lot of conviction, and they think that it's going to go much higher. Personally, I believe that it's going to be around 150K in the next cycle or the next bull run. That's just an estimate. Nobody really knows where it's going to go, but there are a lot of people, and there are enough people and enough rich people that believe that Bitcoin is the asset of the future, and that's clearly demonstrated here by 75% of it being held by long-term holders. So another good thing for Bitcoin. If you're interested to learn more about that, you could certainly go to Glassnode, and it's a subscription based, but you can learn a lot about Bitcoin and on-chain data by going to Glassnode and reading tutorials and then checking out the data that they offer if you're really interested, which I'm not sure that's for everybody, but it is an option. So The goal right now is capital preservation, capital preservation, capital preservation. That's what you should be focused on. That's what I'm focused on. This isn't financial advice in any stretch of the imagination, but in my opinion, that is the ticket for success next year into 2025. If you're new here, please hit the subscribe button, the like button, and leave me a comment below. I appreciate all of you. I look forward to continuing making videos during this bear market and building up an audience to really take off in the bull market. I love doing it, and I appreciate you coming by. Safe trading.